Nope, you were watching Madden. You were watching the Falcons offense put up video game numbers, dropping 44 on the Packers defense in their last game in the Georgia Dome. Matt Ryan looking like the MVP. He had 4 pass TDs and 1 rush TD. Max, what was your takeaway from the NFC Championship?
Aaron Rodgers, the best player in football.
Oh, my God.
And I knew that today would be the day that people would come out and say, see, people who somehow don't pay attention say, see, look, Tom Brady won, and look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers took a team. And by the way, I picked the Falcons to win by 10. And I said on Friday, the only way Aaron Rodgers wins this game is if it's like you're a little kid. You throw the Nerf ball in your room, you throw it, and you catch it. You dive into the bed catching it, and you somehow do both, like with the Odell catch, and you can play special teams, too. He can't do all those things. He took a terrible team, when you really look at it, with no secondary, completely banged up, 0 running game, every receiver hurt. He took him to the NFC Championship game, past the Dallas Cowboys, who for most of the year were the best team in football, or at least in the NFC. He took them there practically by himself. And if you look at this game, not his fault the field goal kicker misses the first field goal attempt from 41 yards. Not his fault that the fullback fumbles on his way into the end zone. Should have been at that point a 10-10 game. Not his fault that no one showed up to tackle, that the secondary didn't want the ball when Matt Ryan gave it to him a couple of times in the red zone. None of those things are Aaron Rodgers' fault, or that all his receivers kept dropping passes. Now, he wasn't as accurate as he sometimes is. He was throwing a little bit low at times, but they were hitting the receivers in the hands. You got to make that play. This is the NFL. You got to make those plays. And by the end of the game, a bad game for Aaron Rodgers is almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, which on 3rd and very long, pinned back, he said, to hell with it, this is kind of like a punt. That was not like a careless play. It was taking a shot because at that point they were trailing by so much. Aaron Rodgers now, by the way, has the second most 3-touchdown playoff games in history, 2 behind Brady and Montana, who played in many, many more games than him.
All right. Let me just go ahead and just stop the violin playing. Listen, we know about the greatness of Aaron Rodgers, but let's give a little bit of love to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a guy who I think he's now proven that he's at upper echelon of quarterbacks. He's put himself in the first tier of quarterbacks, and he will be rewarded contract-wise later on as we go. But here's a quarterback that came into the playoffs with a black cloud over his shoulder. I've talked to a couple of the players that have played with Atlanta and Matt Ryan. The thing about the fans of Atlanta, they're still loving the Michael Vick experience and haven't followed any other quarterback after Michael Vick because they just didn't feel confident that they can get it done. Now they have a quarterback finally that they can rally behind. He has an offensive coordinator who's up for a head coaching job, which I think he should stay in Atlanta and not take the San Francisco job. But they have all pieces in place. You have a slot receiver in Gabriel. You have a solid tight end. You have 2 running backs that can run the football and a stud and wide receiver. Matt Ryan has now proven that he can continue to win games when you need him to do that. And the comfort and support cast that he has with the defense, with special teams, with the coaching staff, they have to all follow in place with them. I think we learned that this Matt Ryan quarterback in the NFL is the guy that we need to follow.
What I took away from the conference championship games, aside from the greatness of Tom Brady and something that you got to pay attention to moving forward because you know he's on his own mission, the guy I took away from is Julio Jones. We've talked all year long about Antonio Brown.
Jump with the receivers.
No, let me explain. We talked all year long about Antonio Brown. We've talked all year long about Odell Beckham Jr. I'll get into Julio Jones a little bit later on with my final take. But what I want to say about this, I'm looking forward. When I think about those championship games, I had no choice but to look forward to the Super Bowl because it was a disappointment. It was an annihilation. It wasn't competitive. I mean, the best game of these players were the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys. You were hoping that the conference championship game would be something of that ilk. So it was deflating to watch games where even though, for the example with the Steelers in New England, even though it was 17-9, you knew it was over when the Steelers couldn't get the ball in the end zone and they had to settle for a field goal. I was disgusted. And we all saw what happened to Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay just in the first half alone. And so when we look at it, I had no choice but to look ahead. And when looking ahead, I looked at Julio Jones. And I saw that 73-yard touchdown, that catch and run for the 73-yard touchdown. I saw strength. I saw size. I saw athleticism.
Speed.
I saw
Physicality.
speed. I saw physicality, pass catching ability. And I'm saying when stuff breaks down, Matt Ryan could literally throw it up. And unlike the Steelers, unlike the Giants, Matt Ryan has the luxury, in case of emergency, of literally throwing the ball up, and you have somebody with the physicality to go up and simply get it. And I'm saying to myself, how are you going to stop this man?
With turf toe,
Yeah,
he's
playing hurt.
And so for me, all I'm saying, Max, is I looked at that because I'm craving a game. I'm craving an epic matchup. And we all know that we can trust that New England's going to show up. Julio Jones, even more so than Matt Ryan. Obviously, he's throwing Matt Ryan the football. But Julio Jones is that guy that made me sit back and say, this is going to be special because they got to figure out a way to stop this, brother.
Now, I think Odell can do that and Antonio Brown in his own way. But the bottom line is, Odell, there was a distraction, in Florida, the whole thing, and then he showed up and he was dropping passes. Antonio Brown didn't exactly set the world on fire yesterday. Julio Jones keeps his head down, doesn't create any headlines, and then when it comes time to balls. He now must be recognized, if he wasn't already, as the best receiver in football.
No
I agree with you.
question. And I think Matt Ryan deserves the MVP this year.